Arnea, Richard Knoll, Millie O'Connell, Natalie Paris, Alexia McIntosh, Grace Moet, damn, Maya Quansabreed, yay! Katie Richardson, who's the musical director who you saw in the back there leading the incredible all-female band, and the writers, Marlowe and Moss, otherwise known as Lucy Moss and Toby Marlowe, and Lucy also has co-directed the show. This is your first musical and the first time that you've written together. Yeah. Just tell us briefly, how did you two meet?
You were there.
Yes. On stage. We were at university together, and we met doing a show that I was choreographing and Toby was performing in, and he played a video game avatar, and I was choreographing his video game movements.
Several videos, but we didn't win anything, unfortunately.
And growing up, had either of you individually dreamed about writing musical theatre?
Nothing like this at all, but I don't know, because I sort of came to uni wanting to be like a songwriting kind of person for other people, and then I wrote a bit of like music for random plays and stuff at uni, and you hadn't really done any writing.
No, I had no idea, but I hadn't written, this is the first thing I've ever written ever, and so it was...
This is the first thing you've written ever?
Yeah, but I've done kind of a lot of like directing, like new writing, so I'd worked with new writing a lot, and then Toby basically suggested that I should write it, and I was like, oh, I couldn't possibly, I'm not a writer. And he was like, no, you should go for it.
This show premiered at Edinburgh Fringe last year in an amateur production from the Cambridge University Musical Theatre Society, right? And you guys were asked to write this show for the slot. So you actually first got together to even discuss doing it in January 2017, right? There's a great piece in the program that then you detail that at that meeting, in addition to thinking, what the heck are we going to do, you created a manifesto.
Yeah,
right?
It's actually so embarrassing, but it's like the most grand thing. We're like, we're going to revolutionize theatre. Oh my god, it's like, I don't know. For people who've never written anything ever, it's really, really over the top. But basically it was because we knew that it was going to be about the Six Wives of Henry VIII as a pop concert that had kind of come to Toby in a vision in a poetry class, so we knew the sort of... and we kind of had no idea whether there were going to be other characters, how long it, like, how much we were going to spend with each queen. We basically didn't really know whether we were going to do a kind of serial kind of going through them like we do in the show now. But we knew that before we'd even come to that, to the idea of the Six Wives as a pop group, we talked a lot about what we wanted to write and why we wanted to write stuff, and so much of it was basically born out of conversations we'd had just as friends about how frustrating it is in musical theatre and in theatre in general that so many of the meaty parts, we had so many amazing female friends who were brilliant musical theatre performers at university, but who were always stuck with really boring parts because basically all musical theatre parts are women and suck. No, I'm joking. Yeah, so we knew that we wanted to write some like funny, meaty parts for all the women that we knew who were amazing at university.
Fantastic. Okay, so I won't go through all of them because, funnily enough, there are 6 points to the manifesto, handily, and there's some good ones, really good ones, but a lot about just what you're saying, you know, female power and interesting female parts, and doing it in a pop concert genre. Okay, so then fast forward to Edinburgh. You did it last year. You then brought the show here to the Arts Theatre. Had a few showcase dates. December, January. You had to have extra ones because every single one sold out. And then, was it then that you knew you had something really interesting?
there hasn't really been a moment when it's like, oh, like now we know this show's a thing, because it's all just like we literally we never imagined anything would ever happen with it beyond taking it as this like student production to the Fringe with like our friends basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so then like when Andy came to see it and Wendy came to see it at the Fringe, and then George and Kenny came, who are some of the other producers who came to see it in Cambridge for like the home run, and then like a week later we were like having this meeting and they were like, we want to put these showcases on, we're going to be huge, and like all this stuff. Because they're actually all from New York, it's a known fact, all from New York. But they're not, they're very British. Like, and then here we are, shout out. But yeah, and so because the showcase was this like huge step beyond anything we'd ever imagined, and then this tour sort of came about.
Everything since then has been beyond anything we could ever imagine.
When the show was here last year, Natalie, you were in the cast. But the rest of the queens are all new. So Natalie, just start us off. How did you feel doing it then and then returning to the show?
Doing it then was just as exciting because it's an amazing piece to do. And the girls were fantastic and everyone was just brilliant, and it was obviously didn't have as much production involved, but it was still, when there's good material, it doesn't matter kind of what budget you're on or whatever. So that was great. And then doing it again, there was the Catherine Howard, Grace is our amazing swing, so Catherine Howard also did it. And one thing that we said was, please, just the girls can be nice. And I couldn't ask for better girls to do it with. So it's just been equally as fantastic, just with better costumes. Pretty much.
The costumes are amazing, and where did the boots come from? I think we all need our own version of those boots.
I'm from
ASOS. Bit of Kurt Geiger, bit of ASOS.
Awesome.
They've just been
Nice fall
bedazzled.
from
Now, Grace, as Natalie mentioned, you are the swing and dance captain normally. Amy Atkinson usually plays the part that you played tonight. But in fact, you did it brilliantly tonight, but you actually know and have played all of the parts, yes? So I think I can only direct this question at you, in which case, do you have a favourite queen to play?
Oh, sorry.
It literally changes from a day to day. I think Jane Seymour is probably one I'm most relaxed because you just stand and sing, and it's, do you know what I mean? No, but I mean like, do you know what I mean? You just stand, you get to, do you know what, I'm just going to go now. No, you get to like stand in the spotlight, sing this amazing power ballad, and everyone goes wild. Do you know what I mean? And you're not like going like, where am I going now? But yeah, so probably Jane Seymour. I also love Catherine Howard just because I think her lines are so funny. I just love them all. Ambulance jokes. The sassy one. I hate going with Cleves. It was just a disaster because I'm just such a geek and I'm just not cool enough for it. So I'm just there like, yeah, get down. I could just feel all the girls being like. So never be ill, yeah. But yes, I love them all.
And it has to be said that Grace is utterly, and equally phenomenal at all of them. I've seen her do them all like more than once, and she's just amazing. That's not true. I've seen her do them all, and she is just amazing at every single one of them. It's really quite like phenomenal.
But let me bring in the other queens now. So the show was here. Then all of you, you wowed hundreds of thousands of people when you did West End Live in June, and then you took the show on tour again, and then to Edinburgh, where indisputably, I think I've talked to a few people who couldn't get tickets to see it in Edinburgh, and were so delighted to be able to see it here. But you were kind of the indisputable hit of this year's Edinburgh Fringe. Can some of you tell us about that experience? What was that like?
It was literally insane. Like, every day was just massively overwhelming. And, you know, we had to, like, afterwards have, like, a meet and greet. And we've just got little girls and everyone just running at us for, like, photos and autographs and just wanting to have a chat and saying how empowered they feel. And it was just, it was so special, but it was like that every night just kept progressing, and you had people from all around the world who just came to the Fringe, and then they were like, we really need to come see your show, and they'll come back like 4 times, and it was honestly just, yeah, it was amazing, yeah.
Also, you'd walk down the street with one of these guys and someone would come up and be like, oh my god, are you Catherine of Arrogance? Oh my god! Like, you're too famous.
We got free drinks when we actually went out with you guys, which is really fun. Because no one knew who we were otherwise.
Did you pay for anything when you were in Edinburgh?
Every time I went on, I'd be in the bar like, I'm swaying, like, I need a drink. I'd always get a free drink.
It's very good.
But yeah, no, it was really good.
Any other favourite memories from your time in Edinburgh?
West End Live was cray cray. Like,
was anyone there from West End
from
Live?
Edinburgh, okay. Can I talk about West End?
You can talk about West End.
Because I just think that was an amazing moment, because we literally met each other the day before. I think I got told I got the role a couple of days before that, so I literally packed my bags because I'm from Birmingham. And then I was just like in the room with these ladies, and then they were like, right, we're going to sing one song at West End Live, and there's a bit of choreography. And I was like, okay. And we literally had like 48 hours. It was like Mission Impossible, do you know what I mean? But we pulled it off. We were backstage like, right, girls, let's go. Next up, Six the Musical! It was just great stuff. Yeah, it was great. Back to Edinburgh!
Now, I have to say, several of you are making your professional debuts in Six, yeah? Lots of, so hands up, whose professional debut is this show? You would never have guessed. That's amazing. Well done, all of you. Who went to musical theatre school?
I think some of us did musical theatre courses, and some of us did acting courses. So there's kind of a varied training thing.
Okay. Actually, while the so who's another question? Okay, this down here. This one. If we could get the microphone down here in the front row, and while we're reading, while Fight Like a Girl says her T-shirt. Yes, Fight Like a Girl. Go on.
Hi. So we've talked about creating great musical theatre roles for parts and performances, but I'm very aware that there aren't that many roles for creatives and other, maybe whether it's tech people, musical people, direction roles for females in London and also on Broadway and many other places. So I wanted to direct to the writers and to the musical director how that has changed, but also for the queens, how different is it playing very strong female parts and being directed, co-directed by women and also music directed and choreographed by women, whether that alters your feeling of the roles or compared to male counterparts.
Okay, let's break that down. So, first
Sorry, that's another question.
No.
Deep.
Get down. So, first of all, can we say, Katie, am I right in saying I think you're one of only 3 female musical directors in London theatre at the moment? So, what do you think about that?
So I just need to fill the crowd in that that's my sister. So I'm like, cool, what did you ask about her? What specific part?
How difficult is it as a woman getting a creative role on a show like this?
difficult. Sorry. On this show, it was great. You were really keen to employ women, and so it's a completely different thing. In general, in theatre, I think it's hard, but it has changed recently. I've noticed the tide has turned in the past 18 months or so. I don't know. My personal experience is that I found it difficult. I don't really know how to elaborate on that.
That's okay. Can I also ask just kind of an addendum to that? How important was it that the band was all female?
Yeah, so I mean that whole question is something that I feel really, really strongly about, and something that we really consciously thought of a lot when we were putting our creative team together. And we were thinking about, we love the idea of having an all-female band on stage because it's amazing having this female space where it's all about female empowerment and like ownership of their own stories. And in part that's why we obviously have this amazing all-female band, but also why we made a real effort, and the producers have been really amazing and helpful at basically ensuring that we have as many women. We always try and consider women like actively before we kind of fill the role with men, which maybe is problematic, I don't know, but I think because it's a show that is both explicitly and implicitly about 6 women no longer being under the control of one man, it doesn't make sense for it to be under the control of men behind the scenes. It needs to be kind of as equal as possible. So yeah, that was super important.
And Queens, does it affect you as performers to have a female director, musical director?
Katie, don't mess around. You better have those harmonies in check. Yeah, she's been amazing, and to work within, I call it the sisterhood, because we literally have supported each other through thick and thin. The cast is amazing. We don't argue, and if we do, it's just nipped in the bud. It's just so minor, like they're my sisters, and it's just, I don't know, I'm gonna get emotional, but it's just great. And yeah, next.
I think it's like a level as well. Like we're all on this level of like mentally, physically, the energy, spiritually, this level that we have, and we're just in this little cusp, and we're just there. And it's so nice, and it's so rare, because there's not a lot of us in the company and on stage. Like the minute the curtain comes down, you have the energy of these women behind us, like driving our show. Because like if we didn't have them, we wouldn't have our show. And it's like this energy of just like this moon power, like just wow. Like, it's mad. It's so strong. It's just so nice.
It's nice.
It's just this. It's safety.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Maya, did you want to add to that? You look like you're...
No, it is. It's just really lovely to be with such supportive women, and the one thing for me is like, if we are ill, if we are not feeling the show one day, everyone is behind you, and that's the nicest thing. Like we have a little like tradition before we go on. Well, we've made it a tradition. We all put our hands together, and Millie like waits for Brian, our company manager, to count down into.
We have to do on the.
Dun, 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 just before we walk on, and it just gives you that little extra bit of like, do you know what, girls, we've got this. We have got this.
Toby, as one of the few men, and the only man on, I don't think I've ever been on such a big panel, and there's only been one man. But how does, as one of the few men in the creative process, does that excite you? Does it affect you at all?
Yeah, completely. I was just saying to Lucy the other day that because I've seen this show so many times compared to other shows recently, when I go see other musicals now and other plays, I'm like, ugh, why are there just so many like straight men on stage? because I've just been so used to this model, and it's just like it's such a travesty that the show gets so much like hype for like having like an all-female cast and all-female band, where it's just like so madness that like no one would like bat an eyelid at the same when it was all men. So even that's, it's kind of like, a basic point. I just think like having this show which has this visual of like 10 fantastic women on stage, it's incredible. I think like there should be like thousands more shows like that all over the world constantly, and it's like ridiculous that there's only one right now.
Lucy and Toby, I was just wondering, what I love about the show so much is that you're watching it and you're like, yes, empowerment, here we go. And then like it just hits you at various points in the show, like, these are actually all true stories. And it's actually really horrendous what happened to these women. And I was just wondering for you guys, when you were writing it, who was the hardest queen to like write their story about? Like, because some of the queens, you have such an interesting approach in it. Like the Anne of Cleves thing, you think she's going to sing this sad song, and actually it's like, I had no idea that she actually had quite a sick life. Yeah, so yeah, just who was the hardest, who did you find like the toughest queen that you were like sitting there like, how do we do this, queen?
And I guess also because the stories are so tragic, how do you write about them in a humorous way while still being respectful of their true details?
I mean, I don't know about for you, but they all had different elements that were difficult versus easy to write. So with Anna of Cleves, for example, the verses just came to us in a like heartbeat, because we knew about her kind of history, and we were like, it would be so funny if she just like has this, because she's kind of like the most joyful story of all of them, that she basically just like won history and no one's ever heard about it, and that's really fun to tell. And then we kind of struggled more with how to kind of like phrase the kind of conversation with Henry in the choruses without making it too sort of negative or too blasé. I think in terms of striking the tone right, I think Catherine Howard's probably the most difficult one, but also the one that probably cared about getting right the most. No offense, Queens, because she's like her story is the one that has been so kind of misrepresented in the way that historical discourse has portrayed her. She's basically, as the show kind of hopefully says, like a 13-year-old child when she started being abused by men, and has been characterised as this kind of slutty seductress, and that like makes my blood boil a little bit about the fact that that's the way she's remembered. So that one was kind of, it was really important to make sure that we didn't just kind of like become really preachy about it, but also kind of showed how she's presented and then how actually that, how people see her now, like in history versus how she actually should be kind of thought of from a 21st century perspective. I think probably Catherine Parr was quite difficult as well, because that was one that we rewrote after the original Edinburgh run, just because we kind of, it's actually kind of both convenient and difficult, that because as the sixth one kind of falls on her structurally to solve all the problems, or sort of like also point out the problem that our whole show is, which is basically that it's Oppression Olympics and they're basically fighting about who had the worst time, and as you say, we're having a hilarious time like laughing at their heads getting cut off, and then actually when we get to that kind of argument about the miscarriages, and then we kind of start to explore why we draw the line at what's okay to say and what's not, and it's kind of like it's interesting that Catherine Parr kind of falls at the sort of point in the lineup that would make sense for her to kind of tell everyone else what they've been doing wrong, but also without sort of, and that's basically when we originally did it, we didn't do a very good job of making it her story as well. She basically just like fixed the narrative without actually telling her own side of the story. But conveniently enough, she was kind of the one that was the most proto-feminist and had all this amazing like publications and like was doing all this incredible work that is sort of insane for a woman 500 years ago. And so it was basically about trying to find how to tell her story whilst also getting her to kind of structurally solve the problem that the show is sort of presenting, if that makes sense.
And her story actually after Henry died is pretty sad too.
Oh my god, it's so tragic. We don't think that we need it.
She died a year later.
Yeah, so Thomas, who she writes the letter to, she does finally get to marry him after Henry died, but then she died in childbirth, much like Jane.
Now,
yeah, he was kind of an asshole, but it's fine in the story, he's nice.
When we say that you two are co-writers, does that mean that you both wrote both book and lyrics, or did one person write more of the lyrics, one person write more of the music? How do you split that responsibility?
Well, the whole thing was done very collaboratively, so we didn't really separate music, lyrics and book, because also the show doesn't really do that anyway. It's a bit of a weird one, but so I'm more like the composer of the two of us, because so everything was written together in a room.
And Toby sits at the piano, and I kind of sit at our like Google dog.
but because like Lucy, like, you know, she like trained for 2 years at Lane and she like knows music and like can speak music and communicate musical ideas, we sort of like construct the musical world together and the lyrical world and the words and the book all in the same room. The book is mainly just us sitting in like in one of our rooms, just like making like shit jokes at each other. And they're like, oh yeah, write that down. And now like flash forward a year and there's like hundreds of people going, like, it's like not fun. So.
There's also been a few times where we've been like, oh, we're going to put this really funny thing in, we're like, we're into rehearsal and we've been like, no, it's 3 in the morning, don't worry, it doesn't matter. So sorry. Yeah, there was a joke for about 6 months that doesn't make any sense.
It was during Holbein and one of the fashionistas goes, Your Highness, Your Highness, Your Highness. And then, do you want to do it? Do you want to do it now? I'm actually going to perform it. Your Highness, Your Highness, Your Highness. No, not you, Your Highness. Your Highness.
And we were like, isn't it so funny that Johannes is this German name and then we realised that it's like Swedish and also no one knows it. It was based on one guy that we knew from university. We were like, oh no.
But you've had it here tonight. So.
And like, it's definitely inspired by Hamilton, like, you know, retelling like history with like a modern Lexis and a modern soundtrack. But like, I think the shows are like aiming to do very different things, and this is more, in some ways, sort of like it's more tongue-in-cheek. It's more of a comedy. It's more of this like weird, fringy musical. But I think we're all huge fans of Hamilton. Yeah. I wrote my dissertation on it at uni. Like, I'm a huge fan. So, yeah.
So with the amazing success of Six, and with your other show that you wrote, Hot Gay Time Machine, coming to London in December, January, do you have any other pieces in the works at the moment?
You did not plant her at all, did you? They have got a show, Hot Gay Time Machine. With your group, the group is called?
It's a Hot Gay Time Machine.
No, that's the name of the group as well.
Yeah.
It's all called Hot Gay Time Machine.
This was almost called Hot Gay Time Machine.
And that's at Trafalgar Studios.
Yeah, that's at Trafalgar Studios over Christmas. Buy your ticket.
And beyond that?
Yes. Probably nothing that we can, very, very early stages ideas, things that we've been kind of thinking about for a year or so, but also things that have been a bit newer, but the kind of 2 things that we're working on at the moment are things that we really care about and think are really important, and hopefully we'll write them soon.
Let me just ask one that came in from Twitter, and that is, this is a great concept of writing a show based on a female figure from history whose story we don't know so well. Are there any others, any of you, females from history that you'd like to see musicals written about?
Has one of my Rosa Parks been done yet? Or is
that?
I know she's been like mentioned and like highlighted and stuff, but like one about her would be pretty goddamn sick. Like
Harriet Tubman.
Harriet, yeah, absolutely.
Joan of Arc the musical. Yeah. Lucy, what do you think?
I mean, the thing is that there are so many incredible women that we don't know the stories of from history, and so much of the problem with the way that history is taught and the way that we learn it at school and the way that we study it even to university level is that so much of our idea of what history is about what men's history was and what men did, and there are so many stories that haven't been told. So I mean, I partly a bit of a cop out, but I feel like there's just like so many stories that need to be told, and that. Yeah, I don't know.
That's almost like subconscious, the irony of that question, isn't it? The irony of, it's the fact that we've been taught in college, like in schools, we can't even sit here and be like, off the top of our head, because I can name Christopher Columbus, I can name all these male figures, which it's okay, but the actual irony is that we weren't taught this in college to then be sat here to say all these people off the top of my head.
Can you say, which queen would you most like to play that isn't the queen you do play? And Grace, you kind of already answered, so but you can say both. Joanna.
I would have to say Catherine Parr. I feel like she has that soulful ballad. I'm living for that vibe every time. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like she deals with a little less of Henry's Bull-ish compared to Catherine Aragon's. That she was reigning for like 24 years, so she dealt with most of that. Do you know what I mean? Compared to the other queens, just saying. But, so yeah, Catherine Parr.
Okay, Millie, who would you most like to play?
Probably Jane Seymour, not only for the show, the fact that she's got the most beautiful song, and it's just a moment of complete stillness. And in this show, we have such insane choreography by Carrie-Anne, and like this is incredible choreography. Every number is so amazing and full on and busy. And you have this moment where you're just completely like you watch the audience in your profiterole. And you can see them just completely engaged, and like there's nothing that will jolt it, and there's just nothing more special than that. And so yeah, props Jane, and her backstory, the fact that she was, she was dearly loved, and it was all just complete positivity and love.
Natalie, who would you like to say?
I'm going to have to copy JJ and say Catherine Parr, I think. The songs, all the songs are amazing, but just every time I hear that song, it just does something to my soul, and it just is, it just gives me life. So I think, and exactly what JJ said about her as a queen as well, I think I'll go with Cathy Parr, yeah.
Okay, Alexia.
Carrigan. Carrigan. I just love the song, and it's just the vibe and sass and all that good stuff. I mean, I love all of the songs, but I love to watch JJ do that. And when she does that key change and then just rocks it out, it just touches me. But yeah, if it was out of all of them, Carrigan, but I wouldn't have put up with that BS though.
I'm really torn because I'd really like to, as JJ, I'd really like to be a little bit of arrogant. Just 'cause I think she's like so sassy, and I just absolutely love the song. I just love to get my Beyonce on. Like I just think, so gel. And then I'd love to do Jane Seymour as well, just because it's another beautiful moment in the show. I just think every time I sat there at the back, I'm just like, she's singing, and I watch people in the front row like crying. I'm like, yeah, same. So yeah, I'm torn, but Seymour and Arrogant I would really like to play.
Actually, Katie, I'm not going to let you off the hook. If you could perform, which one would you perform?
So we've actually talked about this quite a lot in the creative team. I want to be Catherine Parr because that song is a bop, but they all say that I am Catherine American. I don't know why.
Riders, sleeves. Toby, I want to know, which queen are you?
Swing, because I think I'll be equally good at
Who says that?
I said that Toby, didn't I? I was like, I think he'd be Catherine Howard on the outside, but on the inside he'd be Catherine Parr, because he's got a lot of feelings.
It's funny with the Catherine Parr songs, it was the only song in the show that wasn't written for Six. As in, the melody and like the chords and some of the lyrics, because I sort of wrote that 2 or 3 years before for like myself / like a jazz singer friend of mine, and I've got like a voice memo of me.
Voice note of like just kind of like you riffing on the theme and stuff, which is cool.
So it's like that melody is one that I love to sing the most.
Thank you all the ladies.